Hi, I'm Heather Larkin, and I'm a portrait photographer in Athens, Georgia. I'm a current Sigma ambassador, and every once in a while, Sigma gives me a new lens pre-release to test out and see what I think of it before it's available to the public. So this time, I have a very, very special lens. The 135 1.4 DGDN art lens. World's first 1.4 and a 135. And I think you can tell from my face exactly how I feel about it, but I'm going to go into depth in this video. So first off, I'm going to talk about size and weight. It is smaller than I expected it to be and lighter than I expected it to be. Now, that said, it's a 135, it's a 1.4, it has a lot of glass to move around in there, so it's not going to be the lightest, tiniest lens you've ever seen in your life. And honestly, that weight feels kind of good because it tells me that this lens is doing some serious work. And even though it's on the heavier side for a portrait lens, it's incredibly balanced. Photographing with this is very easy because it's small, it's close to the camera, and in general, it doesn't feel like it's flopping all over the place. It feels easily controllable, especially for the weight. Okay, out of the box, the numbers. The 135 1.4 is 3.13 pounds, 4.4 by 5.3 inches tall, wide, whatever it is that you want to call that. The front filter size is 105 millimeters. It has 13 aperture blades in the center, and its minimum focus distance is 110 centimeters away from the sensor, not the front of the glass, the sensor. Now, thinking about build quality, it is solid, it's professional, there's nothing flimsy about this lens. It doesn't feel plasticky, it is amazingly well constructed, and honestly, exactly what I would expect from the art line lenses from Sigma. It feels like a lens that's going to hold up really well over the years, especially if you're like me and you drop it on the ground or fall on it or, a multitude of other things. Being part of the art line, you know it's engineered for quality first, and you know that Sigma didn't compromise on optics. It has dual HLA autofocus, which means that it's got two little motors in here running around two different groups of glass, forward and back at the same time, which means it is quick to achieve focus, and yet it's still accurate when it gets there. Even with the massive amount of glass in here, the autofocus isn't slow. And that's super important to me because I take pictures of running toddlers and dancers who are jumping and all of these things that are, I need absolute pinpoint accurate autofocus. Otherwise, the photo doesn't sell. But it also needs to be quick because the kids are running away or the dancer's done jumping and I miss it. So the minimum focus distance on this lens is 110 centimeters, or for the non-metric people, that's a little over 3.5 feet. Now, I know I harp on minimum focus distance on my videos a lot, and that's because I'm a macro photographer and minimum focus distance is really important to me in most applications. Even in portraits, sometimes it is to get the framing I want. For this lens, I will say that it doesn't matter. At no point did I feel like I needed to be within that 110 centimeters or 3.6-ish feet because the framing that I wanted was outside of that distance. 135 millimeters with the reach, that wouldn't even be a portrait anymore. It would just be some pictures of somebody's nostrils. And if I wanted that, I could use my macro lens instead. Now let's talk about bokeh. To me, probably the most important aspect of a lens beyond the sharpness and how fast it achieves that is what the image looks like. So I want it to not only be amazing, for the portrait, but I want it to be amazing behind the subject as well. Then smoothness and quality in terms of the highlights and the color and whatnot in the background is probably you know how much I love my Sigma lenses and how much I love the last Sigma lens I reviewed, but this one's even better. It's just perfect and painterly and glorious, and it's done so well, and I'm in so much love. I will absolutely not use a lens where it feels crunchy or blocky in its transitions, and this lens is probably one of the best I've ever seen or tested. Now, Sigma has measured this lens and compared it to some of the other ones previously released in terms of how large the diameter those highlight like pieces are. And this is way more math than I am comfortable with, so I'm just going to put it up here on the screen here. But you can see that they're talking about the effective diameter refers to the diameter of the light beam passing through the lens. The larger this value, the larger the bokeh. 105 millimeter 1.4 has an effective diameter of 75 millimeters. 135 1.8 also has an effective diameter of 75 millimeters. This one, 135 1.4, now has an effective diameter of 96 millimeters, which is astonishing. Now, numbers don't mean a whole lot in terms of actual results, so we're going to take a look at actual results later on in this video. Now, the 135 is basically engineered to probably be the most perfect portrait lens in the whole wide world. So how does it actually function as a portrait lens? So at 135, it goes into that kind of telephoto territory where you get compression. And compression means basically the widening of the background and making your subject feel a little bit closer to the background while still blurring it out. So you don't end up with a whole bunch of like crunchy bits or weird things off to the side that you weren't paying attention to. It's very flattering for portraits. It's very slimming on faces, and it makes the backgrounds feel a little bit less chaotic. At 135 millimeters, you've got more reach. Now, this is probably the most personal preference of anything I'm listing here today. Some people will want that reach, and some people think it's too far to back up. For me, it's the perfect in between. I get a little bit of that reach where I don't have to be in someone's face, and I get a little bit of working distance, a little breathing room for them. Then sharpness as a portrait lens. As I said previously, that's pretty crucial. If I cannot get it in focus, I can't sell it. So as with the rest of Sigma's art line, this lens is incredibly sharp. I can count eyelashes and freckles on a full body portrait. Absolutely perfect. That's what I need. Then on paper, the dual HLA autofocus motor is amazing, but in practice, it's even better. It's fast, it's sharp, it's accurate. I, again, can count eyelashes on a full body portrait, but it doesn't matter to me if it's jumping all over the place and every third picture is out of focus. That doesn't help. So fast, accurate, chasing around toddlers. I literally had kids running a circle around me, and as long as they were outside of that minimum focus distance, they were in focus, and it was perfect. And then we get to the most important part, 1.4. It's a world's first 135 1.4. And let's face it, you're not buying the world's first 135 1.4 to use it at 5.6 all the time. No, you want to see what it does wide open. I feel like that's literally the entire point of this lens, is to photograph it at 1.4. The answer? Oh, it is stunning. It is absolutely glorious. Every single image at 1.4 looks amazing. I'm not sure it's possible to take a bad portrait with this lens. I know I said you don't buy a 1.4 lens to use it at 5.6 at all times, but when you have to stop it down, it still looks amazing, and that bokeh in the background is still beautiful and still compression and has a lot of separation between your subject and your background. It's great. So we are going to take a look at some of the things that I have taken with this. So conclusion, yes, it's a large lens, but I don't really see it being any larger than a straight up regular telephoto. And it has the same front filter size as the new 200mm 2.0. Yes, it's on the heavy side for a portrait lens, but I don't care. When the images look that good, I do not care. So I've got a couple of videos pulled up for you, and I want to talk about the videos and the images afterwards so that you can see kind of what I'm seeing while taking these images, but also then what I'm seeing in the images afterwards. So here's video number 1, Toddler on a Rock, and I needed to back up a little bit, but I didn't really feel like I had to be too far away from her. And plus Dad was right there. So here is the resulting image number 1 and number 2 where she's looking at me. But I think my favorite part of this, besides her little face and these little like baby knuckles, is all of the bokeh in the background, all of these little out of focus highlights. And they're round, they are not distracting, and yet still completely magical, like absolutely. And even round all the way up to the edges, right through here. All right, this next one is in some grapevines and getting her to stand where I needed her to stand. So I put a leaf there so that she could step on it and then look at me. And that took all of about 3 seconds. And then she was done. So next image is the result. You can see I've got some out of focus elements here in terms of like the grapevines, but all of this is just smush in the background and none of it is blocky or crunchy or anything distracting. And it allows me to focus on her complete little eyeballs, which is absolutely great. Oh, like look at, I can even, her hair is just gorgeous. Absolutely love it. Okay, so this is one of my favorite poses, and it's just a top-down image of someone laying on their back. And I like this because the posing is nice, like the framing is nice. But see, look, I can, look, count eyelashes. This is just insanity to me. I love this. I love it. It's gorgeous. Now, I did add this vignette in post. This is not the lens, because I like it a little bit more framed and it tends to look a little flat for this pose, just laying there. But otherwise, completely all lens. And her fabulous makeup. That's all her. So here I wanted all of like the out of focus elements in this fountain in the background because it should create a bunch of little sparkles in the air. And that is exactly what it does. You see all of these are here. Bloop, 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 bloop. I wish that I'd had a little bit more of those. I was hoping to get all of the sparkles on all over, but it's still doing exactly what I had hoped that it was doing. Just, I'd like extra glitter. Could use some extra glitter. Everybody can use some extra glitter, right? All right. These girls, I didn't have to be too far away from them because they're both sitting down. And you can see my Dr. Pepper in the side there. But photographing them horizontally, and then I did some vertical shots in this area. And just in general, I am talking to them and getting a couple of shots here and there. So here's the result, and I think that this is just like amazing. All of this is smushy. It's not distracting. I can see that that's grass and plants back there, but it's not blocky. The out of focus elements in the foreground are great. And then autofocus wise, this one cracks me up. You can see Mima over here filming also. So I'm shooting backlit into the sun, and I need to be able to focus while she's twirling and still get it all in focus, and it works. It works beautifully. There's her sister, and there's her. Autofocus elements, not distracting, little bit of glitter, little bit of pixiness, goes well with the fairy look, and yet still gorgeous. Now this one, I had a long expanse of handrail, and I kind of wanted to use that as leading lines and see how much of it faded off into the background, and which it does absolutely beautifully. See right there? There's that handrail. There's the canopy overhead, but it's not distracting. Like, you can tell what it is. It's an environmental portrait, but it's not distracting. Like, it doesn't have to be in your face that this is a urban atmosphere. Even I had somebody walking behind her here. I can tell it's a person, but it's not distracting. There's two people actually right there. And it's not super distracting. It doesn't really be in your face. It allows me to concentrate on her instead. And then this one is, I just wanted some of this building to fall into blueness and yet her in the sun. And that's kind of what we got. Yep, it's urban. I love these little like glitter back here, but it allows her to shine and the background to fall away. That's the whole point. This one is a funny video because it was pouring rain at the time that we were taking this, and on either side it is just sheets and sheets of rain coming down, and she's just jumping just fine. It was amazing. But I don't have to be right on top of her back here. This is a bridge going to like the transportation center in the background of her, so we have people walking by. But I ended up having a couple of people in the background, and it wasn't like a huge deal. I chose images ultimately that did not have the people in the background, but it wasn't crucial like it would have been with a wider angle lens. Her hair is like a paid actor in this, and she just looks amazing. Even though it's pouring rain and she's jumping in the middle of a bridge, it looks great. I love all the leading lines coming in. The blur coming through just gives you the impression of lines, but it doesn't necessarily distract. And now this one was tough because there's a trash can over here by the car and another trash can in between me and her, and I needed to cut out the trash cans on each side and still catch enough of the jump. So we did. So there's, you can barely see, there's a trash can on either side, just out of frame, but it totally works. Yet again, hair paid character, yes please, I love it. We've got the cones, repeating elements, the bars repeating elements, and yet the background is not distracting around her and allows me to focus on just her. So I absolutely love this. I think it did an amazing job. This lens might just be the best portrait lens in the world right now, and I'm going to be using it at 1.4 for the rest of forever, and I'm going to love every minute of it.